good morning, good afternoon, and good night.
What's greetings, Earth?
Same genius time.
In the demographic I identify with.
I don't believe you murder.
I think an ignorant voter and a non-voter
He took the military out
are one and the same.
the civilians.
Same genius channel.
Under his watch.
What
Know
has
something,
he done
bro.
about police reform in this country? Nothing.
Greetings, Earthlings, and welcome to Unsolicited Genius. I am your curator, Carlton Ennis. I am joined today by If Cooler Than the Other Side of the Pillow had a spokesman, Craig Lindo, Mr. Be Careful If You Crack a Joke on Him, Mo Lofty, and our special guest whose thoughts make you think, Tamara Scott. On today's show, I'm taking a back seat and letting Craig ask the question to us parents: where is the line between discipline and abuse? We hope to give you something to ponder. What is up, everybody? Greetings, salutations, and all that good stuff. How y'all doing?
Well,
Greetings and salutations.
Good evening, everyone.
Welcome to the show. So just to let our audience know, we do care about our fans. We care about our subscribers and supporters. And so with us, Tamara Scott is a day one-er. From the first post, she's been reposting Unsolicited Genius. And it is truly, truly appreciated. So, Craig, today is your show. So before we get started, Tamara, what's on your mind you want to get off?
What's on my mind? First off, it is a pleasure. I enjoyed listening to you guys all the time. I used to tell Carlton, well, why they say this? Why they say that? Y'all got to think about this. He was like, you know what? I think we might have you on one time because you got a lot of comments. So I appreciate you guys having me on. I'm gonna always support since day one, and gonna continue to support. So what's on my mind? I don't know, just work and soccer and trying to balance, being a single parent and trying to balance everything. So, mindfulness and finding meaning all the time through everything. So that's pretty much it.
All right, I dig it. That's enough. Uncle Mo, what's on your mind?
Well, first of all, I'd like to thank Tamara for joining us today. And I know when she says, why did we say this? Why did we say that? She's talking about Craig, and not myself. So I appreciate her mentioning that. What is on my mind? On it. What, just can I be honest? What's really on my mind, man, is I just saw a clip. Donald Trump was in the city of Atlanta today, and he gave out 30 free milkshakes, and our people were very excited to get these milkshakes and take pictures with Mr. Donald Trump. So that was something I was thinking about before the show started.
All right. Where did he get the milkshakes from, dare I ask?
He was at a Chick-fil-A, man. He's going to use this opportunity with these photos he took with these lovely black folks to show how much, black people love Trump,
The blacks love Trump. Fair enough.
The blacks love Trump and chicken from Chick-fil-A. That's going to be the next campaign slogan, Carlton. So
I gave them chicken. They love me. All right, fair enough. All right, Brother Craig. Well, you had the question, so I passed the proverbial, is that how you say it, mic to you.
Yo, I love pass the mic, so I'll take that. I'm good with that. I'm a little bit, side anecdote on the pass the mic thing. At work, I saw a group of my students get together and play pass the mic as they waited for the bell to ring. You have to know the Gen X backpacker in me was so proud of them. All right, so on thing, but it made me feel good. It was an inspirational moment at work. So the motivation, and I thank you for letting me ask the question to get some feedback on it, is I walked into a conversation, and the longtime introvert set sitter in me got to observe a lot, right? And they were a group of people were talking about an incident where a young man was quote unquote disciplined, and as far as I could hear, I don't know if the line between discipline and abuse was crossed. And I think in the conversation I walked in on, um, I don't know. I don't know. But what I was able to observe were all of the opinions from all the different participants, every interlocutor and their angle. And some were parents, some weren't, and some it was interesting their line of work, some weren't. And I left the conversation at I'm 2+ 6 more. You know what I'm saying? Officially celebrating the 21st anniversary of my 25th birthday recently. You know what I'm saying? Like I'm shocked that I'm even confused on this. So so that's why I brought it up. Like, what is the line between discipline and abuse? What does that look like? What does that sound like? And does that change between boy dad, boy mom, girl dad, boy, but in this case it was a young man. So that's why I brought it up. Like, where's the line between discipline and abuse when raising a young man?
So I'll jump in. And I mean, I think at minimum captured in the question is recognizing that there is a line. Now, how do you define that line?
And I might be projecting, sorry. Maybe there ain't.
I'm suggesting that there's a line. I think there's a way to educate your kid, shift and change the behavior in your kid without destroying your kid physically, mentally, and emotionally. And I say destroy because it's not that one incident will destroy them, but there's a way to provide that knowledge, provide that education, encourage that change without leaving them physically, mentally, emotionally downtrodden. But how do you know that line as a parent? I think it's difficult. I think you have the intent, you have fear, you have your own emotions. Often when the kids act out, it's stressful, it creates anger. So, is there a line? Yes. How do you define that line? I'm sure the laws in your state will have something to offer. But I think for me, I want to be sure that whatever is leading this discipline is love. So as frustrated as I may be, as agitated as I may be, whatever I say or do next, I want to be clear that it's love leading and not the frustration, agitation.
Well, all right, cool.
Mo, Tamara, thoughts?
I will defer to the lady because, well, my mom used to beat my ass, so she always told me ladies first. So I'm still scared of her. Trauma.
I have a son. I have a 10-year-old. And I mean, I can't compare it to raising a daughter, but I think it also goes back for me is learned behavior. Like a lot of behaviors that I grew up with and I saw, I necessarily don't do. Because like you mentioned, you want to, lead and explain. If I'm ever that upset, I take myself out of the situation because I don't want to say something or do something that I may regret or make him feel a certain way. So I think it's unlearning those behaviors first, or what you're used to, for me, and sit back and looking at that, because parenting, this didn't come with no handbook. Although I wish it did, it don't come with a handbook. So it's just, for me, I think it is definitely a line. And it's all about how how you want your child to feel, because your child is a reflection of you, right? So I think that it starts, from the well-being and the mindset. You don't want to, go in full force. Well, for me, full force, and not have him understand what you're talking about, or understanding why what he did is wrong, or, knowing when to lead and when to follow, and, get those messages and those signs mixed up. So it's a daily struggle, to be honest, for me, because again, raising a man, a black boy in 2024, and trying to parent along with the stuff that he's hearing at school and at soccer practice, when you're not around. So I think it's just challenging, and I take it second by second, because with boys, Lord Jesus, it's just some things that I've just never seen and never heard before. I'm like, oh, and he's teaching me too. I think we have to sit back and see, like, what are they saying, and their thought process behind what they're doing, what it's teaching me as a parent. Because again, I've never done this before. This is my first child. So I just take it day by day, honestly, and try to control my emotions, because I had a bad day and I want to go off and, talk. I like the power of the tongue. To me, I don't ever want to start yelling at him in the morning because he didn't wake up on time, and then he go to school and then he can't function. Now the teacher calling me, like, it's just a domino effect. So I've learned to be calm and talk about it, but let him know what the importance of my words are. And it's not always about being aggressive. You know what I'm saying? Or raising my voice or having an attitude. You can get your point across and be respectful. So I'll stop there. I'm sorry.
Don't
Please don't
apologize.
apologize.
You good.
Yeah, please don't apologize. For me, Craig, to answer your question, is there a line that can be crossed? I agree with Carlton, absolutely. As parents, we try to do our best, but I also agree with Tamara. It's a lot of adults that deal with children, whether teachers or parents or whoever interacts with young people. They take the attitude of, you will respect me because I'm the adult, but children, just like any other adult, they want respect too. So, my son is 4 years old, but he gets respect. He gets an opportunity to voice himself, to express himself, as long as he's doing it, in a respectful manner. So that would be one thing for me, is I believe respect is critical. And no matter what form of discipline you use to enact with your child, the key for me is understanding. Like, if they don't understand why you don't like that behavior, it doesn't matter what form of discipline you're enacting, that will rear its ugly head again, because they don't understand what's going on. They're young people. They're young. So, my first line of defense is always just cool, calm communication, man. Like, hopefully we could talk through this. He could get an understanding of what I expect from him, and he will enact that behavior. I'll give you an example, and also persistence, like to not get tired of correcting the young person, whether it's your child or if you have students or whatnot. It is, how determined are you to be persistent and not get so annoyed of repeating yourself that you stop doing it? My son, like I said, is 4, and he's got into this little habit, Craig. Like, you'll say his name and he'll say what, and I don't like it. So, but I don't yell at him. I just tell him, Johnny, what did I tell you about saying what? And he'll go, yes, Daddy. And then tomorrow he's gonna say what again, and I'm gonna say, Johnny, what did I tell you about saying what? And he'll say, yes, Daddy. And if I keep doing this, if I keep being persistent in my message and and correcting him every time he does it, you know what I'm going to eliminate eventually? Him saying what? So, and that's not going to take me putting my hands on him. I don't have to raise my voice. I just have to correct the habit and be persistent in the way that I'm doing it. But I guess my biggest answer to you would be like any form of discipline that doesn't involve the child understanding what they did wrong is just going to keep leading to that same behavior.
Yeah.
Great point.
It's just real quick, because what Mo said, I had never really thought about it from the abuse standpoint. Is I grew up getting spankings. I feel like I got a whole bunch of them. But I think when you do look at what abuse is, I wouldn't label anything I got as abuse. Extreme, maybe, where there are other approaches, maybe not. But I think that understanding of what transpired and what corrective actions should be taken is clear. But I wonder, for the kid who spills milk, if whatever, right, spills a glass or whatever, and receives some sort of verbal, physical punishment for a mistake. So it's like, yeah, I know I spilled the drink. It would behoove me not to spill it again, just from a general comfort, human perspective, I guess, for lack of a better description. But what is it when the child is punished physically, verbally, disciplined for what was a simple mistake?
The circumstances of the punishment.
I don't think you want to make your child fearful of making mistakes, man. Mistakes are a powerful tool in helping us to learn, whether adult or child. But like in Carlton's example, my kid spills his milk, Craig. I'm not yelling. You know what I'm doing? I'm handing him the spray and the paper towels because I'm not cleaning it up. I didn't spill the milk. So he learns through, like, if you spill the milk, you're going to clean up the milk. So now he knows that this becomes a burden upon him, not upon me, because I'm not cleaning it up. So, like, that would just be like one example of what. And Tamara made a great point. I feel like our generation is a generation that realizes that our parents did make mistakes with us, but we don't. We never go to the excuse of, well, I was raised this way, so this is the way I'm going to do it. We are trying to, and I love Carlton's mom to death. I've said this many times on the show. I love my mother to death. But my mom was the lady, man, where I would wake up in the morning and watch the TV with no volume because I was terrified if I turned on the volume and she heard it, she would woke up. She would flip out. And like my son, every day wakes me up at 7 o'clock, Craig, and he jumps in and he's like, let's watch TV. And I do it with him because I realize he's a child. He's up. He's an only child. He just wants some attention. He just wants to hang out with his pops and his mom. And there's nothing wrong with that. But I do feel like I appreciate that in our generation. It's like, you don't hear a lot of us say, well, this is the way I was raised, so this is the way I'm going to do it. My dad used to smoke cigarettes in the car with the windows up and me in the passenger seat. Like
with no seatbelt on.
Yeah, with no seatbelt on.
Hey.
And he's just puffing away, and I can't breathe. I don't smoke. I don't do this with my son. Like, I realized that wasn't an appropriate behavior to engage in with a child. So, I just think parenting's hard. Like she said, there is no handbook, but we can learn from the mistakes our folks made and try to do better, for our children. So I feel like everyone on this little chat right now is definitely trying to do
that. That's great. For the record, you talk about a generational thing. it was within the last couple of years that it hit me that I've never been in a car seat. Ever.
I don't know that I had either. I don't.
I've never been
There's
in a
no
car seat.
pictures of me in a car seat. So
Tamara,
There's no
Mama
evidence,
Lindo
there's
was
no
transporting
talk.
Craig around, and his head was like a little bobblehead in the back seat.
Like none of my memory, even a few that I could recall, they involve either me in arms or like going down this. I remember being in a pickup, in the bed of a pickup, going down and driving on the left side, going downhill of a hill in Jamaica in the bed of a pickup, and I'm not the only child in that motherfucker. It was just the roads were narrow as whatever, man. Like it was all right, cool. It was just a little bit different.
Doc, my kid Craig has a rail on his bed that prevents him from falling off the bed. I was like, you know how many times I fell off the bed and just banged my head? Like,
it would explain a lot. It would explain a lot.
See, here you go.
I got two directions for y'all right now, parents, with the whoopings or the pow-pows, as far as the physical part of it, just to nitty-gritty slightly. On the one end, what did it teach you if you got some pow-pows? And I know for sure I got way more than pow-pow.
Got the belt.
That's life. Yeah, man. That red leather thing, bro. It's crazy. Yeah, but you know, it might start off with a little on the wrist as a baby. Like, how does it start? Is it too early? And then, so I guess that's one question is, when do you start it? The other question is, from your memory, what did it teach you? Honestly, what did you learn from it? Honestly, it made me sneakier.
Tamara, what you say?
That's a good question. I think discipline starts as soon as he could understand, which means the discipline was catered to where he was or how old he was, because I couldn't discipline him when he's just starting to crawl and he's trying to reach something, or, you know, versus 8, 10. So it was, for me, it was levels to it. And it was, you know, showing him what's wrong and what's right to where he understood at that level. So it just, it just increased from that. But for me, I was really a good kid. So I don't even remember honestly getting like whoopings. I do remember, I mean, I'm probably telling my age at this point, but sitting on the porch and my bonus grandmother was cutting celery. You know how they used to cut celery and sit on the porch and cut the carrots and all of that? I don't know what I did, but that celery hit the side of my leg, y'all, and left a good old welt. I was like, I didn't even know you could get hit with celery. Like, what?
I was today years old when I learned that you could get hit with celery. So
let me tell you,
if it left a welt, it worked.
Yeah.
I'm sorry to laugh at your pain, but that is great. I've never got a celery story.
The people that raised us, they were like some creative ass whoopers. Like just out of this world creative, man.
Yeah.
I you know, some of my stories are rather cliche because they include having to go pick my own switch off of a tree, or a red leather belt that is always in the same location that I was told to go and get. So, you know, we all know anticipation of the event is worse than the event itself. So, you know, that part. I mean, but what did it teach y'all though?
So for me, I agree with Tamara in terms of 2024, or, you know, whatever age the child is, you know, you structure the discipline based on the level at which they can receive it. And I just remember for the most part with my son, it being very much a, you know, mental conversational dynamic. What you don't do, what you can't do, what you shouldn't do, and you know, tone, energy, project. So he's received guidance as early as he could receive, as he was able to process it. From what I learned from, you know, my forms, the discipline I received, you know, some sneakiness was a byproduct of that, but more so than anything, for me, it was simply a line. There's a line that exists with your parents that you cannot cross, because depending on what it is, how far over the line I may go, will dictate how far they go to correct that action. So I did have a fear that if I acted out in school, one of my parents could show up and render discipline on school grounds. Both of my parents divorced when I was young, so in essence, raised me in their own ways separately, and separately both convinced me that if I went too far, they would take my life. You know, I brought you into this world, I take you out. And even when I suggested to my mother, well, you gonna go to jail, she said very calmly, I'll be all right. And so I was just like, if she don't even care about going to jail, I have no recourse. So for me, it was definitely that in this life, if you want this life, there is a line that your parents have established. May they be different lines, but lines that you cannot cross.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely agree with you, Carlton. There's lines that can't be crossed, but I think Craig's question is like, what did we learn from that kind of discipline? Um, you know, truthfully, Craig, you know, did it teach me some things not to do? Yes, but was I confused at times? Yes, because sometimes that discipline came without dialogue, without teaching, without understanding. So it would leave me like confused, like, you know, did I really deserve this ass whooping? You know what I'm saying? What did I do that was so bad that got me in this predicament? So at times it was confusing for me because there was no understanding. But like, you know, my son is 4, and I don't look at age like that, to be honest with you, Craig. The minute I feel like he can comprehend what I'm telling him, you know, my expectations are, is the minute I expect him to meet that standard, meet that expectation. And we're very blessed. He's a bright boy. So, you know, when I talk to him and I know he understands what I want from him, whether he's 2 or he's 10, you know, if he gets that meaning and he can apply what I'm saying to him, you know, I expect that to be done. But to me, back to what I said earlier, if you choose to give your kid a spanking or a little hit on the wrist, it, if to Tamara's point, if they don't understand and they're too young or they're not mature enough to understand why that happened, what's the point of that? You know, what's the point of that? That's just putting negative energy into the air. If whatever discipline you use doesn't lead to your kid understanding why you don't approve of that behavior, to me, it's a waste of time. It's just a complete waste of time.
Has it ever okay, so just going mom specific, dad specific for a second. Does that change as far as, like, personally? I don't know what it's like to be disciplined by a father figure. I can't tell you what that's like. Never seen him, never met him. He could have been behind me in Publix today. Like, however, for those that have had the experience, is there a difference in your experience being disciplined by each parent? And are you conscious of that when you discipline your own?
For me,
Well, go
oh,
ahead. I'm sorry.
go,
Go ahead,
oh,
please.
I think it was different. I think for me, Like we knew my daddy didn't play. Still to this day, at my age, I know he don't play. All he had to do was give us that look. Like it was, I don't know if it was just, we knew to respect, well, we respected both of them. But I think my mama would, I think it was, I don't know. I can't say if she was more lenient, but we just knew that if we could probably try mama and she'll probably say yes. But daddy, you could, look at him and know he is not about the games today. Okay. But in disciplining my son, I always just think it through. I know you can't be right all the time with parenting, but trying to discipline, I try to, again, he's a black boy in 2024, and I don't ever want him to forget, what he's going into and why he can say and do certain things. So I think for me, I just try to be mindful, because I can't, I'm a woman. Like I don't know, two things about, you know, what the puberty part, and all of that. Mixed in with trying to balance school, and like I said, he's into soccer. He already think he played for Austin FC. But making sure he keeps his head on straight, and it's just you try to, you do what you can, with, and then you don't know what you don't know. So
For me, Craig, my mom really did the majority of, like, I guess you'd call it the ass whooping. But my father left me when I was like 14. So, but before he left, like Tamara said, like he would just look at us and I would be like terrified. And this man really didn't lay his hands on us very much at all, but it was his stare, it was like his demeanor, his vibe. It was like, let me just get right and sit here and not breathe. So like just not breathe any oxygen, Craig. But in my household, man, my son receives a lot of love from both of us. But the person that he fears if he's done something wrong is definitely myself. His mom, he hits her with a smile, and he's a little charmer, my boy. And to me, I just look at him, Craig, the way I look at you, like, or Carlton. It's like, yeah, you're not gonna get me with this. I'm gonna talk trash to you. I expect you to get right. Like, that's never gonna work with me because he is my son. Now, I will say though, if I had a daughter, I feel like she would be able to get away with a lot more with me than she would with her mother. I'm not. Is this hypocritical? I'm not sure if someone would take it this way, but it is.
I would agree with
But
that. If
I'm
I
just
had a
being
daughter,
honest with
yeah.
y'all. My daughter, I would not be as tough on as I am with my son. I'd be, I'd do the things I wanted to do to make sure she's a good young lady. But would she be able to like charm her way out of things with me? I'm aware of myself, Craig. She would. Like, she would. She just would.
I love the transparency. I'm here for it.
I know. I'm just telling you, like my son, it's like, if he messes up and he's like, I love you, daddy. It's like, well, I love you too, but let's get back to why you messed up. Like, my daughter,
See,
I'd
and
be
that
like,
would be like
"Aw."
me with my
Is that
son when
kind
he
of a
tells me
mirror
that,
effect,
like,
a reflection
yeah.
thing?
Is that what?
Is that kind of a mirror effect, a reflection thing?
I just know. I don't. It's like Tamara said, man. I'm trying to raise a black boy in 2024, and I realize the things he's gonna face in this life. As a black male, and I hate it for our black kids, but they almost have to develop like this tough skin. You know what I'm saying, to make it in the country that we live in and to overcome the obstacles they face. So I just view him through a much different lens. I'll even tell you this. You know what the behaviors he does, Craig, that drive me the most crazy? My son,
What's that?
the ones that remind me of me and the
Yeah.
flaws that I have in my life. Like, when I see my flaws come out in him, those are the behaviors that I hop on quickly to try to change, because I don't want him to have the flaws that I have, you know, and that takes, as my life coach would say, you know, Carlton in his coaching, as a sponsor of the show, as he would say, it's like you can only find peace with yourself when you become self-aware of who you are. And you're aware of the positive, beautiful things that make you who you are. But you also realize, you know, I'm a flawed person. And there's things that I could work on to make myself a better person. I just don't want my son to have the habits that are my flaws, Craig. Like,
Man,
so,
I hear
you
that.
know, with him, it's like, you know, constantly just like, you know, come on, you got this. We got to be mentally strong. You know, we got to be mentally strong, Johnny, in order to make it in our society. Whereas my daughter, man, I just look at my daughter and be like, you know,
If you had a daughter, you would be different with her.
she'd be
Yes,
tougher on her. She
How
would be
so?
tougher on her.
absolutely.
How tougher,
Absolutely.
lenient? What would the
Um,
difference be?
a mini me? What? I think it'll be totally different because I mean, as a woman, there will be certain things that I already know that's getting ready to happen that I'll be like, nah, we're not doing that. Not
We didn't
today.
True,
grow up as women. So
true
we,
that.
as men, we wouldn't
And vice
know when
versa
they're
with a
like being
son.
slick, Carlton. She's
Yeah.
absolutely right. Whereas as if I had a girl, her mom would be like, she's
Oh yeah.
playing you. She thinks
Yep.
she's slick. She's doing this. Whereas I just look at her and be like, look how beautiful my baby is. Come here, give me a hug.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I
Mom,
mean, you're
Tamara, thank you for having
acknowledging
my back. I'm not the only
No,
you're acknowledging that you would leave room for her to maneuver. I'm of the mindset, in my experience with children, I only have a son, but being around nieces, being around goddaughters, being around, you know, my son's friends, I talk to the boys that are the same age as the girls in the same way. The way I react, respond. You know, I have learned that I'm not, you know, a children person. You know, you got animal people and whatever. I'm not a children people.
You would be as tough. You feel you'd
what?
be as tough on your daughter as you are on my nephew.
Very confident. Very confident.
Very
No, you
confident.
wouldn't,
I think
Carlton.
Very
you're
confident.
underestimating. I think you're
No.
underestimating this
All I
by a
have is
lot.
all I have is my experiences. And in encountering a little girl and a little boy, even if they're siblings, I talk to them, react to them, respond to them in the same way.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I'll give you an example, Carlton.
All right.
When my son cries, and I don't feel like he's crying because he's either emotionally hurt or physically hurt, he's just crying because he doesn't like get his way. I'm like, cut it out. Like, real, like, you know, deep voice. Like, cut it out, man. Stop crying. That's not a reason to cry. If that was my daughter, I would not tell her that. I would not tell her that. I'd be like,
One
baby,
of
who are we
He's
gonna
being
hurt?
transparent.
Who made
gotta
you
be here
cry?
for it.
one of our friends left me in charge of their daughter for, I don't know, 8 hours, give or take. And in that 8 hours, she proceeded to cry. Not the whole time, but there was a window. I thought we was chilling. She just started crying. So I sat her down. I sat next to her and I waited for her to stop crying. I didn't, oh baby, I didn't sit on my lap. I sat her down and gave her space to gather herself because whatever she was crying about wasn't going to get resolved between that point and her parents arriving. So we could chill and have a good time, or we could sit here and cry the whole time. And once she stopped crying, we had a great time.
This
She's in
man
her
has
20s now and love me to death.
Craig, this man has an ice box where his heart should be.
Just for children.
Oh,
Just for children.
shout out.
I get more sensitive as they get older. You know, my heart
Is that
bleeds
how it works?
for my
Hey,
co-host,
Craig,
but for the
here's
children,
here's your one joke for the week, right? Carlton's the guy that when they walk out of the Diddy secret room, he's like, "Why you crying, dog?"
Why are we doing this?
Why
no,
you crying, dog?
if somebody If an adult left Diddy's room crying, I am empathizing and sympathizing and questioning why am I standing outside of Diddy's room. But we digress.
There you go,
We
Craig. The
digress.
one time.
Why are
this
you
week.
first person witness? A little bit more context to the conversation that I walked up on. It is the dad on son sounded like it got to wrestling and the like, right? And possibly wrestling or some form of boxing
as a part of the
exchange.
discipline. As a part of the discipline.
Yeah.
They got into a fist fight.
Like, that worried me a lot. And I don't know if I'm not sure if I could say where there is a point that a young person ever, to repeat a phrase, deserves that. You know what I'm saying? Like,
deserves to be physically manhandled as a form of discipline.
Yeah, to that extent. Like, slamming jits.
Could I ask, like, I don't care how old it is. They are. Craig.
Less than 14.
But I'll just say this, man. Like I said, my son is 4. My goal in life, man, is to teach him, like, the way to handle conflict is not through violence; it's through communication. So I'm
glad
hoping
you said that.
I'm hoping I am able to implement those seeds. I'm just a big believer in this, man. This is the foundation of my kid's life right now. And the habits and the values and the morals that I instill in him today are going to be what I see later on in his life. So if I don't correct what I don't like, guess what? It's going to come back and bite me in the ass later. I would rather, to steal a phrase, I would rather him cry now than me cry later. So if I can instill the things that I want to see in him at this young age, I pray that when he gets to that age, that's never going to be a concern for me. Like, could it be? Sure. I'm talking about, like, if the kid attacked me, because I've seen kids, like, try to attack their parents. But wow. I'm hoping to instill, in him that through communication, through understanding, through empathy, we might not always agree, but at least we can understand where each other's coming from. It's like people always say, like, that stupid saying, do as I say, not as I do. That shit doesn't fly, man. That shit doesn't fly. Like, your kids are very impressionable. They're watching you. They mimic your behavior. So, I'm mindful of how I handle conflict if my son is around, and I try not to resort to just, like, try to bully my way through a situation with language or make threats against people, and just show him how a grown man handles conflict when he's faced conflict with another grown person. I pray that the work that me and his mother put in now, Craig, would never have us in a situation like that. Man, the other day I was at LA Fitness, and a dad was training his kid in basketball, and this kid might have been 10 years old, Craig. And he was cussing at him, man. I mean, cussing at him. Like, why you acting like a little B word? Like, and
I've met them.
I became so uncomfortable, dog. And then there was a point where he put the kid on the ground and had, like, his elbow in his throat. And I guess it's just the person that I am. I went over there and I said, listen, man, that's not appropriate. I was like, you got to get your elbow off this kid's throat. And he's like, this is my son. I'll do what I want. I said, listen, man, he is your son. But if you choose to do this in front of me and all of these other people in here, you know, I am going to go say something to the people at the front desk and have you removed. Because I don't think it's ever appropriate for you to like cuss at your kids. Like, I just don't. What is that teaching them other than anger? And it builds anger within them and resentment. And are they going to ever trust you with anything if they feel like every time they tell you something that you don't approve of, you retaliate with just, you know, fire and fury? Like, you know, my biggest goal in life, Craig, is two things with my son. One, that when he's out in them streets and I'm not with him, he hears me and his mom in his head when he's about to do something stupid. My other goal in life is that he'll feel free when he's older to tell me anything because he knows his dad and his mom always have his back. I want the first person that he thinks of calling when he's in trouble, I want it to be me. To be me, not for him to think like, oh shit, I hope my dad doesn't find out about this. I want him to be like, I can tell my dad about this. I'm in trouble. He'll come get me. We can talk about this and figure it out together because I'm Team of Johnny, Craig. I'm Team of Johnny all day, every day.
And I guess, you know, love that, love Team of Johnny. I'm on board with Team of Johnny too. I think the crux, not the crux, but, you know, a component of Craig's question includes you've done all that, right? You've done your best. You've instilled all that you could, but the young man is feeling himself. The hormones and the puberty is kicked in. He got a little lady at the school in his head. He got some homies that say that make up stories about what they do and what they don't do and don't accept. And as a parent, you do your parent thing, and the kid said, "What? What you gonna do, Dad? What you gonna do, Mom?"
I'm not fighting my son. I'll restrain my son. I'm not getting into a fist fight with my kid.
What you do, Tamara?
Let me I'm gonna have to pray about it first because, like I said, I don't ever want to react in anger. I'm not going to try to top him because he's angry or out talk him or out argue or do a bigger buck. Like, no, one, that's a no. And I'm gonna have to talk through that because I already know I'm going to be that upset, but I also want him to hear me, but I also want to listen and hear him. You know, it's always a time to. I don't ever want to overreact. Because it could be something that, I don't know, it could have been anything, but I would have to first pray about that and go to the other room and think about it and come back when my mind is clear and I can think, you know, through my thoughts and talk to him and calm him down that way. I wouldn't fight my son. Like, he already almost the same height as me anyways, but in any event, if he wasn't, but I would let him know that what he is doing is disrespectful and that I'm truly not the one or the two. So it would, yeah, that would be one that we would have to talk through because I know you don't ever stop being a parent, whether they 6 months, they 22, or you know what I'm saying? So I think talking through that because that won't be probably the last thing that he runs into that makes him that upset or that angry. But hopefully that one time we get a good old talk in. But never, I wouldn't put my hands on him like that.
Tamara, I'm envisioning him bucking at you, and you're like, "Hold on, time to pray. I'll be back."
And in that window of time, he gonna be the scaredest he's ever been. I
saw the
in
ponytail
his life.
action.
He don't know if he gonna get to see that next day.
Yeah,
but I think I would just try to restrain him in. The thing where I would say it would be different in my mind, though, if I'm being honest, is if he tried to swing at his mother, my wife, in my presence, that would be a little different in my mind because, you know, I definitely didn't raise your ass to hit no women, especially your mother. You take a swing on me, I could eat that, I could restrain you. But you swing on your mother, I think I would have a much bigger issue with that than if he took a swing like at me.
Yeah, I think
You don't touch their mother.
I know of stories of fathers getting into full body disciplinary altercations with their son. Who initiated it, how it came about, I can't say. So I feel like in my mind, I like Tamara's point, because I could go ahead and just start praying on it now. I don't anticipate it, but should it reveal itself, I've had in my mind that, not with the intent to hurt or, injure, but restrain and hold into, a stillness so that we could create some understanding. I imagine that while I didn't do it, most of my homies in my circle didn't buck up physically, at least to their parents. One of them did, but it got dealt with. But I recognize that it's a thing that can exist. Hopefully, though, the character that we've created, the personality that I see today, that won't be an issue. That respect and love flows through me, flows through our relationship. But I think just understanding that things happen, I know that just because I taught it, just because I disciplined it, just because I set forth the expectation, when he's out in the world or out perceiving the world, things could go left. But like Mo said, what I want is my voice, my energy to be present. So if there's an opportunity to shift back right, line up and go straight, that he takes advantage of that.
But I also think, Carlton, like you're a life coach and you're excellent at what you do. Show sponsored by Carlton and his coaching once again. To Tamara's point, though, if your child is that upset, Craig, you could either throw gas on that fire with your reaction to that, or you can try to de-escalate the situation. How willing are you to take your pride, your ego out of the situation to de-escalate it and let cooler heads prevail and then come back and talk? I think in those situations, once again, it's like, who are you to buck at me? You're my kid. So, and you're throwing gasoline on that fire and it leads to those encounters where you could be like, you know what, you go to your room, I'm going to go to my room. We'll come back and we'll discuss this in a civilized manner. So, I think we as adults with more life experience should be able to, use our skills to try to like de-escalate the situation, not enrage the situation.
I agree.
Does chronic misbehavior change this context?
Like, you mean repeated misbehavior?
Mm-hmm.
I think Mo's facial expression answers the question.
Once again, if you beat your kid's ass and think that's going to change a chronic misbehavior, I think you're misguided in your thought process. Like, right. What skills are you teaching them to deal with this? The way to change any behavior is to establish an understanding, whether adult or child. So, if you beat a kid's ass because God knows what chronic misbehavior they're having, I don't think that's going to change the misbehavior, man. I think, like you said, it's just going to lead to them being more sneaky. I'm not saying you don't have to there's nothing wrong, in my opinion, with on occasion if you have to put your hands on your kid. But if that's what you resort to if every time they make that mistake, you beat their ass, and
they make the same mistake again,
is that changing the behavior? So what's the point of the ass whooping?
Right.
There you go.
Right.
That's a fool's errand to me. So because it's creating a resentment towards you as a parent. It's creating what you said earlier, Craig. It will lead to them being sneaky. It will lead to them not trusting you, with the things that are affecting their life. So in my mind, what's the point of that?
I wanna shift gears a little bit with the three of you in regards to, let's just call it the purse strings, right? In terms of, okay, if you are not seeing certain behaviors, how does that impact you maybe buying certain things or financing certain experiences? Is he gonna get the Chucks instead of the J's, right? Like, how
Ain't
does
nothing
it
wrong
play
with the
out?
church.
I'm not saying they are, like, I'm just saying there's a cost difference,
I defer
right?
to the
Like,
lady.
that's where I'm going with it. Like, there is, like, does that even factor in? And that goes, especially, that might hit a little different for you, Uncle Mo. You know what I'm saying, in terms of
No,
shooting
I
and
love
stuff.
my sneakers, so I defer to Mrs. Scott.
No, when it comes to like comparing the shoes, he don't care he don't care if he match, he don't care if the shoes, whatever.
I mean, not
I
just
think,
shoes, but
He's
like
saying
yeah,
any
like
kind
the
of like
rewarding
games,
them
materialistic
in,
yeah,
reward.
absolutely,
those ways.
absolutely. Taking away like screen time, even soccer. Like if he just
Ooh.
will, it'll be the end of the world if he takes soccer away. Let me just say that. But yes, I will do that. But see, my thing is I have to practice the consistency of it. I'll be like, I'm gonna take away soccer, and then don't take it away. Then he do the same thing. I'm like, well, why is he doing the same thing, knowing I'm gonna take away soccer, but I really didn't take it away. I just said it.
Okay.
So I
Picking
have to
up on
be.
that.
That's one thing I have to be consistent. Is like when I say what I'm gonna do, I need to follow through and do it, and not do it like every other time. But yes, I have taken, if the grades aren't up, then you don't play soccer at all, or you don't get the screen time in the games and the phone. So I have done that. Was it well received? No. But you just keep trying.
Yeah.
Keep taking stuff away.
Yeah, same here. Stuff will, get taken away. Now, Jordan's versus Chuck's, that's not my, that won't necessarily resonate with my kid either. But the electronics, the sports,
I was showing my age there.
the things. Well, no, it resonates. It's just we and
I
Tamara and
just
I in
started out
Austin.
early that there is no, don't make it like, oh, this is better than, or this,
Yeah.
so it's just.
Yeah, sneakers is sneakers.
Yeah.
He knows what J's are, so Uncle Mo don't, so that Mo knows that he is aware. He knows the distinction, but those things just don't, don't taking, trading his sneakers out versus saying no PlayStation for the next 6 months is gonna the PlayStation is gonna have a significant impact on his action plan. Like Tamara with soccer, if I take football Americano away and say that's it, no more football, there's going to be a much more impactful reaction. So I think too, when we talk discipline, all of that is part of the equation because I'm not going to spank my kid because he got a C on a math test. But a C on the math test may mean no video games this week until we pick the grade up. So it just becomes a part of the discipline formula predicated on what challenge we're trying to solve.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with both of them. In this household, Craig, if you're doing what you're supposed to be doing, we'll give you the world. If you're not doing what you're supposed to be doing, I'll tell them like I told them last year. I'll take away Christmas. Like it's just that simple. Like in my mind, it's like, and that to me, Craig, is life. you know, if I'm not doing what I'm supposed to be doing as a husband, you know, I can't expect to get, you know,
Christmas.
the nookie. I can't expect to have fun when the sun goes down. So, like, and the other thing about it, Craig, and I want to say this is, when I take these things away from him when he doesn't do what he's supposed to be doing, I also want him to understand his value is not in materialistic things. His value is in who he is as a person, in his character, in the way he handles himself. When Carlton takes away the PlayStation because my nephew got a C on his math test, it's not a punishment for getting the C. It's a lesson in how we allocate our time better.
It's a distraction
to ensure our success.
Yep.
Yeah,
it's a distraction.
It's a multifaceted learning tool, Craig. It's about, you did this, so I'm taking this away, but also shouldn't matter if I take this away.
Listening to Craig D, Molat.
In the end, I wanted to just close it by asking you, how do you actively teach your children conflict resolution and boundaries, and does how you discipline, I'm assuming how you discipline impacts that? And if it doesn't, point that out to me.
You got it, special guest.
I think boundaries are very important because I don't want people, I want him to know that his personal space is his personal space and his safe space, first off.
How do you go about teaching that?
Explaining that to where he understands and saying, hey, if like he's 10, like when somebody is talking, an adult, like you be respectful of that. If they're talking or you need to interrupt or you got something to do, know when, like I said, know when to be quiet and know when to lead, I think is key as well. But knowing and saying, if you don't want somebody next to you or you don't feel comfortable around somebody, it don't matter what the reason is. It don't matter what the reason is. You don't have to hug everybody. You ain't got to give that. If you don't want to be around them, just set those and let people know. And, effective communication. It's not about hurting anybody's feelings. It's not about any of that. Those are your boundaries. If you don't like that, you don't like that. No, letting him know, no is a complete sentence. You don't have to explain why, you don't want to be around certain people. I'm not going to make you do, because I think, learned behavior is forcing kids to do things that they truly don't want to do for whatever reason. So I think teaching those boundaries and effective communication during conflict can go a long way.
No is a complete sentence. That's the bar I'm taking from that. I think it's actually half a bar. But what you got on it, Mo?
Well, one, I love what you said about no. I think even as adults, man, we feel like we just can't. We can say no, but then we have to explain why we said no. I really don't have to explain why I said no. I'm an individual. I can just tell you no. Right. But we're very much the same with our son. He's 4 years old, Tamara, and we tell him, use your voice, man. Like, if you don't like something, it's not about him saying no or saying he doesn't like something. It's about the way you go about it. Yeah. Be respectful. No, thank you. Man, we went to this place, Carlton, and this lady kept asking him, you want to go for a walk? You want to go for a walk with me around the thing? And she thought she was being nice to give him the energy. And he was just consistently said, no, thank you. No, thank you. And I was like, you know, when it was just him and I was like, you did a good job in there, man. Like, if you don't want to do something, just say you don't want to do it. And he's also more than welcome to say, like, if I say to him, Johnny, you want to go for a walk with daddy? And he's like, no, thank you. Cool. Like, you know, you did it in a respectful way. We encourage him to use his voice. In terms of conflict resolution, man, because he's only 4, you know, like at school, I tell him, someone puts their hands on you at school, go tell your teacher, you know, don't worry about like smacking them back at this point, because he's only 4 and he can't distinguish when that would be appropriate and when it wouldn't be appropriate yet. So, you know, I tell him, just use your voice. If someone at school is bothering you, have no fear in expressing that they're bothering you, and tell them to stop. The other thing I try to do, Craig, is how I conduct myself, man. Like I said, they're very impressionable. The thing, how we handle ourselves when times of conflict, I'm especially mindful, or try to be. You know, I fail sometimes, I'll be honest. But, you know, when I'm talking with his mother and we get, you know, me and his mother, we've been together, 21 years on the 27th of April. We dated 10, it'll be 11 years of marriage. Thank you. But I feel it's important, especially in our community, for our sons to see like how a man should properly treat, you know, his wife or his lady, because there's so much anger in our community, man. Like, and I don't want him to be like that. I want him to view the world, you know, man, I buy my wife flowers like every 2 weeks when I go to the grocery stores. I buy her flowers.
Every 2 weeks.
You see them in like, as soon as they die, you know, as soon as these die, because, you know, I buy her flowers. And I never hand it to her, though. I always give it to Johnny, and Johnny's the one that hands her the flowers, because I want him to see, like, this is how you properly treat a lady. You know, the queen of our household, the lady that runs the show. You know, because, man, I'd be completely lost without her. Like, I'm not doing our taxes. She's doing our taxes. I go on vacation. I have no idea what the itinerary is. Carlton knows this. Carlton's like, you know, I don't follow itineraries. I just show up and I'm like, hey, I'm here in Puerto Rico. Like, what do you want to do? I don't care. You know, that's who I am as a person. So I'm very, very mindful. And, you know, I've talked with Dr. Young about this because he has 2 daughters. And Dr. Young's been on the show before, our frat brother. And, you know, me and him are always talking about that, man. He's so conscious of the way he treats their mother around his daughters, because he wants his daughters to see what a healthy relationship is between a Black man and a Black woman. And more importantly, how they should be treated when they enter into a relationship with a male. So, you know, the way you conduct yourself, because your kid is always watching, is going to go a long way into how they handle conflict in their life.
Yeah. Only thing I add to what Mo and Tamara said is we talk, you know, mine at this point, he's 14. He's highly intelligent. He's been conversational since probably 3 or 4.
You've been talking forever, man.
Right. Having conversations forever, telling stories forever.
And my kid is the exact same way. I remember Khalil, man. Khalil, I used to talk to Khalil and look at him and forget how old he is. I'm like, man, when are we going out? We going out tonight? It's like 4.
So I demonstrate it. I teach it, and I talk about it, because I don't always get it right. You know, he's in an environment where his grandmother's around, his parents aren't together. You know, we have family and friends that, you know, come and go, and he goes to a family reunion and his cousins that are siblings are fighting in the front yard. I'm sure he's heard a conversation or 2 with me on the phone with Mo, or in an animated conversation. He sees me with, my boo thing, that, how we relate. She's not his mother. But all of these people that, like Mo says, he sees. And so I don't always know what he sees. And I don't always know what he hears. So I try to make sure that, not even try to make sure, I make sure that we talk. I make sure that I ask, what's on your mind? What's stressing you? What's worrying you? What's making you happy? What are you excited about? What are you looking most forward to? So, and the more, if I say that over the last several years of doing that, as he's maturing, and even in the more recent months, I can see, it goes from I'm all right, it's okay, I'm good, to a more, what happened the other day? Or,
Okay.
I had a classmate and they said this and it was this and people was this, and I'm hearing and I'm like, I don't know what the hell you're talking about. But the fact that he's sharing and expressing from, a middle school experience, a middle school day, tells
Opening up.
me he's sharing what he sees. And so as he shares what he sees, I'm mindful that I'm not critical of his reaction, that we talk about his reaction. We talk about his perspective. What they say happened, I think he had a teacher that sneezed and farted at the same time, or something crazy happened in the
That teacher
classroom,
just lost that whole classroom,
and
dog.
it went wild. And so I asked him, what happened? What did you do? And, how do you think she feels? And, so things like that, we talk about, where I attempt to not be judgmental. I don't want to overpraise or be overly critical. I just want him to, approach life as he sees it, and take forward the messages, the lessons, the teachings that I give him, recognizing he's got a mom who we split time. So sometimes he's with me, sometimes he's with her, learning, seeing, being parented. So I think you asked a question earlier, Craig, in co-parenting, we're not in the same roof, under the same roof. So I factor in what I say do with what his mom may be saying or doing. And I'm confident that 90% of the time we're similar, if not exactly aligned. But when there might be a question, or if the situation came up when he was with his mom, I will ask him, what did your mom say? Or did your mom, after I did a thing, said a thing, what your mom say about X, Y, and Z? So that at least if she and I aren't having conversation about the scene specifically, I get insight into how he's seeing and experiencing, his parenting.
Got it.
I also think, Craig, like, just to expand upon this a little bit, like in Carlton's situation with the co-parenting, I think a lot of people, and the mistake they make in that situation is they bash the other parent in front of the kid, and I think that's like just a critical mistake they make in that situation. You need to be able to put your disdain for that person to the side and realize that the ultimate goal is to work together to ensure your child is good in life. The other thing, man, don't be scared of uncomfortable conversations with your kids, man. Like I'll give you an example, man. I had a conversation with someone that you and Carlton actually know, and he'll remain nameless. And the conversation involved if two gay guys live next door to him. And he said, essentially that he wouldn't want that, because if the two gay guys kissed, he would have to explain to his son why the two guys are kissing. But I was like, isn't that parenting? Like, explaining shit to your kids that they don't understand? Isn't that what parenting is? So if you're scared to explain things that happen in the world to your children, you're fighting a losing battle in my mind. They're not. You're doing them a disservice just because you might feel uncomfortable with the conversation. And he was like, "Well, what would you tell your son?" I was like, "Hey, man, there's two guys kissing." That's what I would tell him. Like, they are together, and that is different than what you see with your mother and I. But that is that is fine too. That is their situation. So, that would just be an example of something like that. I would say there's parents that don't want to broach certain topics with their children. And it's like, well, I'd rather talk about it with my son than him get some goofy information from one of his friends that has no idea what the hell they're talking
Touche.
Strong enough to carry a heavy conversation. Tamara?
Ooh, I would agree. I think for me, it's hard. You got to try to find, well, for me, I try to find the right words to where he will understand. Because, perception is reality. And sometimes the perception that a 10-year-old gets, it's kind of hard to explain it so a 10-year-old will understand. So if I was in that situation, I would have to talk to myself and talk through it myself, because I don't ever want to over communicate and say some things that will clearly, go over his head that won't make any sense.
Okay.
So I'm telling y'all, parenting is challenges come. I mean, and I see him getting older, and I see, like you said, at the soccer games, the little girls, and the hee, and I'm just like, Lord, just be with me, because and I asked him, like, because I'm still want to hug and kiss on him, when I drop him off and pick him, he like, Mama, no, like, you know what I'm saying? So I'm like, hey, as a girl have come up to you, and I just be like asking him certain stuff, and I'm like, Tamara, are you really having this conversation? But again, I want to have it with him so he don't hear it the wrong way from somebody else. So I think for me, it's a challenge. I say that it can be challenging.
I also think it's important, Craig, with your children to realize that, like, in Atlanta, I'm surrounded by our frat brothers and their kids, and their kids will reach out to me because I'm Uncle Mo. And, if they're super uncomfortable with something they want to tell their parents, they'll reach out to me and they'll tell me. And, I'll talk with them through it. Now, do I let their parents know and tell them not to mention that they told me so they're aware of what's going on? Absolutely. But it's helpful. Like, I pray that one day, Johnny is so comfortable that he feels like he could call Uncle Carlton and confide in him and seek advice from him, and realizing, it's okay if I'm not the only source of information for my child. As long as it's someone that I trust.
It's very selfless.
As long as it's someone that I trust, that I know has the best interest of my child at heart. Like, one of our frat brothers' kids, they know, man, if they're ever in any trouble, they could, because they're older, they could call me at any time and I'll come and get them. And they have a great relationship with their parents. But, sometimes you're just like, I don't want to get mom and dad involved in this. But, it's nice to have other adults that you love and trust that your kids can turn to, and I would encourage, like, if Carlton was here in Atlanta right now and my son did something and Carlton corrected his behavior, that's perfectly fine. Like, because I think that the concept of the village raising the child has kind of gotten lost, and I'm kind of a big believer in that concept. So
It's a village. It takes a village.
Would you feel comfortable putting your hands on one of your neighbor's kids?
No, I'm not putting my hands on any kid that's not my kid.
Okay.
I'm not doing that.
Just litmus testing the whole village thing, dog.
I'm not trying to put my hands on my kid, man. I'm not trying to put my hands on my kid.
I mean, you do give permissions, right? So in my son's village, there's village here in Austin, and the two fathers, when the village initially formed and we were exchanging kids, we like, hey man, if they get out of hand,
But wait, I want a
do
point of
with
clarity
mine
here,
what you would
Carlton.
do, and vice versa. If mine is with you and whatever you doing for your kids, that's what happens with him too. If
Wait.
he's
I
in
want
the
a point of
mix.
clarity. Craig said neighbor. Now, if you're
Yeah,
talking
he
about
said neighbor. He said neighbor.
if a Johnny is with Carlton, yeah, Carlton, if you need to pop him one time or
Yeah.
something, I'm not annoyed by that at all.
Village, yeah,
Because,
village.
but
Neighbor, nah, neighbor. I'm like,
I should have said village. Okay,
oh,
are
okay,
members of the
yeah,
village?
if
How
you're in,
far can members of
village,
the
yeah.
village take you?
but let me put it to you this way, Craig. If I trust you
That might be a
enough
naive question.
if I trust you enough to leave my kid with
Right.
you, then
Right.
and you need to give him a little pop, I'm fine with that. Like that don't bother me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
But
I
you
think
know,
that's the purpose
I
of
also don't
creating
leave
the
my
village.
kid with a lot of people, Craig.
Yeah.
Like I don't trust that many people with my kids. So, that would be the ultimate litmus test if you are in my life, if you want to know how much I trust you. If I leave my kid with you, just know you have my full trust. If I trust you 90%, I'm not leaving my kid. Like, I'll be honest with you, I would never leave my kid with one of my sisters. I don't trust that scenario. And she's my blood sister. So, but that's the ultimate trust that I can give a person is if I say, can you watch my kid for me? And I leave my kid with you. That would be the ultimate trust.
I can
You were
see
gonna
that.
say something, Tamara? What were you?
No, I was saying that's the reason why you create that village. You create that safe space, so your child knows, hey, I'm comfortable, and then you're also comfortable with that. I think that's the purpose, of that. I think what the village looked like back then is not necessarily what it looks like now.
No, because it
You
included the
know?
neighborhood back then. The
Right,
neighbors
exactly.
up
And
and
you
down the
knew, like,
street, they was reporting back. I saw
that
Cheryl
part.
Ann over
Yep.
at around the corner, and the sun was like, "Is that okay with you?"
Yeah.
Now you
Exactly.
got to worry if the neighbors are Kelly and shit.
R. Kelly, P. Diddy, Bill Cosby. Who
Craig,
else?
another thing I would tell you about this kid thing, man, that I don't think we mentioned is I think the most powerful tool, if you've done it right with your child, that you can have outside of like a whooping or something, is if they are truly fearful, not of you, but of disappointing you. Like my son, if he knows that he's disappointed me, he will start crying because he doesn't want to disappoint mommy and daddy. He really wants to do the best he can for mommy and daddy. He loves the praise we give him when he does right. But if you can instill that in them, I think you've done a tremendous. You're going down the right path, man. You're going down the right path.
You know me, I still hear my mother's quotes, so something's going on there. You know what I mean?
You didn't
There's
hear
a
them
ghost,
quotes.
there's a voice in my head, and it's one of them quotes. Chicken Mary Hawk Nanny or something, like it's something.
See, man, I don't think you heard them quotes right because you weren't in a baby seat. You're just banging your head on the window of the car. Like you were never in a baby seat.
I was enjoying the ride. What are you talking about? Go faster.
My dad's forearm was the seatbelt in the Cadillac. That was it. He threw it out. It was strong.
I told somebody the other day, I could remember the commercials, or not necessarily, I remember the TV spots where people would be interviewing Americans on the street, and Americans were like, they were fighting against seatbelts, like the law saying, like, hey, the government shouldn't be able to tell me what to do inside my car. You know what I mean? Like, I remember that. I'm that age.
All the while you
I might
flying out
present
your
like a millennial,
windshield.
but I ain't.
Flying
Dog,
out your
smoking
windshield,
was
we have to
cool.
spend tax dollars to scrape you off the street. So yeah, do what you want.
Dang, Carlton, you remember any quotes from your dad?
Yeah, I thought it was his. I thought it was his till it showed up on the T-shirt. He said, "It's not the size of the dog in the fight; it's the size of the fight of the dog." And that was him trying to motivate his vertically challenged
You
son.
thought he made that up?
I thought I was like, damn, daddy, you good. I was like,
You're naive, man.
it's not the size of and it was the energy that he said it. I hadn't heard it before. And then
It don't matter where he got it.
I don't know. A couple years later, I see it on maybe not even a couple years later, but at some point I saw it on the T-shirt. I was like, damn, he ain't make that up.
Man, my dad was an asshole. But the one quote he gave me that always stuck with me is like, true power in life is the ability to tell someone no. Like, I don't want your job. I don't have to do this because I'm in a position where I could tell you no. That's the one thing he said that
my dad's teachings didn't have so many words in them. It was syllables. It was and son, stop acting like your mother. Right.
See, you shouldn't do that. You shouldn't do that.
I'm not suggesting my dad had it all figured out.
He shouldn't have done that.
I'm not suggesting he had it all figured out. But, his lessons were very short and to the point. He told great stories. He was more of a storyteller about life adventures or this one time in Guyana, in South America, wherever. But when it came to disciplining me, he hit me twice to my recollection. One when I was real young, sucking my thumb, shocked the hell out of me, never had to worry about that again. And then one day I was just chilling on the couch. I ain't feel like getting up, doing nothing. And somehow he was across the room, but what it seemed like two leaps, like the NBA travel, somehow they had the 3-point line, but all of a sudden they had the basket. So he did something.
With a Euro step?
He did something. It gave me a nice little hand clap scoop. And the shot, what, I don't even know if it hurt, but it was the shot. Like, how you even get over here that fast? So the two events in terms of discipline and physical discipline, I think all that exists. But the rest of it came in tone and in presence and in, 4-letter language.
Love your kids, man, and just realize you're gonna make mistakes. You're going to make mistakes. You're gonna have, if you care enough, you're gonna have regrets because you're gonna realize you're not gonna do everything perfectly. But as long as you love them and they realize that the stuff you're doing is in their best interest, it'll be fine.
There is no perfect science. It's just some people make it look like an art. You know what I mean?
It's like Tamara said, man, there's no book to this shit. Like, there's definitely no book. I would have bought the shit, but there is no book.
There is no book. No, but I think this is where our conversation amongst us help us as parents, having conversation with other parents. I've learned from other parents. I've learned from you all in two parts of this discussion. But I think too, by putting it on the podcast, there's people who aren't parents that'll hear it, people who are parents that'll hear it, and some will agree, some will disagree. But I think that's, it's an oral tradition that's come up recently. I forget where, but talking about oral forms of stories and not having everything in the book. Welcome back to Unsolicited Genius. Do not forget to like, subscribe, and follow wherever we are. And where we are is Instagram, TikTok, YouTube, X for now. We playing with Threads. I don't know, it may transition because X got too much drama on it. But wherever we are, like, subscribe, share, follow, let other people know you heard a podcast that you vibe with, what they talk about, how they talk about it. Shout out to the super producer, Joe Nitty. Thank you for your patience. Thank you for your guidance. Thank you for your artiste abilities. Special thank you to our sponsors, Legacy Wear. Your legacy awaits at www.legacywearus.com. Megacore CBD, where broad spectrum hemp derived CBD is presented the way nature intended. Visit them at www.megacorecbd.com. Shout outs and thank yous to Aura Rainwater, where you hydrate and elevate. Find out more about them at www.aura.rainwater.com. And Carlton Ennis Coaching, be your light. Learn more about me, what I do, how I do. Set up a time. Let's talk about it at www.carltoninissco, carltoninnisco.com. All right, before we get out of here, special shout outs. Who you want to shout out, Brother Craig?
The date of this recording is National Siblings Day, so shout out to my siblings, good terms or bad terms. Love you, bro. That's what it is.
Uncle Mo.
Shout out to our producers, always, man. Shout out to our guests today. I really thoroughly enjoyed your company. I hope you enjoyed ours and got some good laughs. And I appreciate your support as we do this show. And I'd like to shout out the other person that's always supported us from day one. I know he's going to be listening to this. OJ, I love you, man. Like,
Deuce.
OJ, shout out to OJ, man. I love you to death, man. Just always.
Shout out, Juice.
I always stay true to who you are, brother. I appreciate your wisdom and your advice. Norland, he'll kill us if we don't shout out Norland. So shout out to Norland. Happy Siblings Day to my 3 wonderful sisters. I love y'all to death. Happy Siblings Day to my brothers, man. My brothers in Zeta Kappa chapter of Phi Beta Sigma. I wouldn't be the man I am today without y'all. So I'm forever grateful to my brothers as well.
Yes. All right. Tamara, who would you like to shout out before we get out of here?
Not you. Don't shout him out.
I'm going to shout all 3 of y'all out. I really do appreciate it. I have been watching you guys and supporting you guys since day one. So salute to all 3 of y'all. My shout out, of course, would have to go to my baby boy, Josiah, but most of all, shout out to my daddy. Love you, daddy.
All right.
Can I ask you a serious question before we go? Be honest now. That's all I ask.
Okay.
Which one of us is your favorite? Just say that.
I have a favorite.
Good. Joe Nitty, just the producer, what he creates, he's all our favorite.
Oh, I love Joe Nane. Joe Nane is my light-skinned hero.
Oh, God.
I want to give a shout out to my mug maker. Mark Pasich Mallet is an artiste extraordinaire, does t-shirts, murals, mugs, whatever you need. He's on the internet. Mark Pasich out of Florida, frat brother, artist extraordinaire. I got a bunch of them. Game of Thrones, Walking Dead.
Hey, Carlton, you also got to mention, man, he is one of the GOAT steppers of all time.
GOAT steppers.
He is one of the GOATs of stepping.
I know him as Mallet.
Fraternal history, you will, if there were a Mount Rushmore of steppers,
he's on that Mount Rushmore.
Across all organizations, Greek letter, all of them, he is one of those in terms of where he's done it, how he's done it, who he's brought with him along the way. So he's an artist in dance, an artist in painting, and in a lot of ways, very creative brother. Shout out to our frat brother. All right, so thoughts of genius. We talked today about parenting, and at the core, we talked about love. But one of the things that we also represented was the use of our words. Words matter. I think on a previous episode, we talked, we even brought scripture out that describes, the tongue as a sword. Choose your words. Those of those things you have options. You may not have a choice in who says what to you. You may not have a choice in the energy of your room, of your atmosphere, the circumstances that you find yourself in. Somebody hit your car, somebody step on your pinky toe, life happens. But regardless of what happens to you, if you have access to words, meaning your mouth works and your voice speaks, you have choices there. And you have the power to create with those words. You have the power to destroy with those words. And as much as we talk today about choosing our words as we direct them to our children, as you see us navigating our words as we interact with each other and tolerate Uncle Mo, also choose your words as you apply them to yourself. So if you think to yourself or talk to yourself, you are not stupid. You are not dumb. You are not evil. You are not bad. You are human. Just as you can say those things to yourself, you can say encouraging things to yourself, that you are beautiful, that you are capable, that though I fall short, I have it in me to do greatness. So choose your words. First, choose your intention, choose the outcome that you want, and let your words line up. With that, this has been another episode of Unsolicited Genius. Join us next week, same Genius time, same Genius channel. And for whenever you are, good morning, good afternoon, and good night.
Craig D. Craig D. Molat. You are listening to Unsolicited Genius.